Good evening, and I welcome you to your transformative program, Politics and Beyond. As we've always been doing, this is a platform that transforms the mind, and it's a platform that will also guide you in making the right decisions, particularly in this year being an election year. My name is Emmanuel Jr., and you can get interactive with us using our WhatsApp platforms and the various social media platforms. And in due time and due course, we'll be reading your comments and we'll be engaging you also. We have always talked about this mantra, and I believe you've all heard of it, that if you fail to plan, it simply means that you are planning to fail. And it is very important because planning determines everything. Unfortunately, we live in a country where our attitude and behavior in line with planning has caused us to rather see things that are supposed to be a blessing to rather be a disaster. And I will explain to you. Remember, we have seasons, and one of the seasons has to do with rainy seasons. It is in Ghana that when the rains come, we end up crying because we associate flood to the rains. Unlike other countries that are proactive and have decided that even in a desert land, they are going to find a way of inducing rain into their country because they know the benefits of it. In Ghana, we rather have a natural rain, and yet we see it as a curse because that is when disaster occurs. I'm not surprised because even a country that is branded as an agricultural country is also a country where years where we have, or seasons where we have bumper harvest, we have our farmers rather crying because they say that it is in that period that they lose a lot. It all comes to the fact that we are not planning the way we ought to plan. And sometimes when you sit back, you realize that the attitude of Ghanaians, particularly our leaders, when it comes to planning, defeats the principle or one of the principles that governs democracy. And I'm going to read to you. It says that the most secure democracy is the one that assures the basic necessities of life for its people as a fundamental duty. Unfortunately, because of our approach and our attitude towards planning, we fail to adhere to this. And you see, it is not for fun that if you take our 92 Constitution, there is, a significant, provisions covering planning in this country. So if you make reference to Article 36(2)(d) of the 92 Constitution, it requires that the state, and I'm making reference to Ghana, will undertake even and balanced development of all regions and every part of each region of Ghana. And in particular, improving the conditions of life in the rural areas and generally redressing any imbalance in development between the rural and the urban areas. This can only be achieved when you have proper planning. And not just planning, but when we also commit to it. And that is why, again, the framers of the Constitution saw the importance of us having a whole commission to be in charge of planning. And I'm making reference to the NDPC. And so if you make reference again to the Constitution, Article 87 or 87(1) and then 2B, it says the Commission, and making reference to the National Development Planning Commission, shall advise the President on development planning policy and strategy and make proposals for the development of multi-year rolling plans, taking into consideration the resource potential and comparative advantage of the different districts of Ghana. If this is not happening, then it simply tells us that there's something wrong with us as a country. As I indicated, the reason why we seem to be failing as a country is largely because we are failing to appreciate the importance of planning. Is it that we are not planning, or we are planning, but we are not committed to it? If we are planning and we are not committed to it, then what might be the reason? Is it also because probably our leaders have reduced our governance structure to just voting? And so all they care about is winning an election and not necessarily developing the country. In just about a day or two ago, I woke up to one of the headline stories and I was so amazed, where a presidential candidate was telling another presidential candidate that because the other presidential candidate has been a president before, he should be given a chance to be a president. And I asked myself, how does that increases or affect development in this country? There's a lot of conversation we are going to have and a lot of issues we need to discuss, because planning is one major thing that is affecting us as a country. We are going to take a short break, and when we come back, I'm going to introduce to you the guests that we have to help us engage and appreciate exactly what the problem is when it comes to development plan in this country. Just stay tuned, we'll be right back.
Ghana is not new to development planning. From the colonial period to now, the country has been through a number of development plans. Notable amongst them are President Kwame Nkrumah's 7-year development plan, President Rawlings's Vision 2020, President Kufuor's Ghana Poverty Reduction Strategy, GPRS-1, Growth and Poverty Reduction Strategy, GPRS-2, President Mills's Ghana Shared Growth and Development Agenda, GSGDA-1, and President Mahama's Ghana Shared Growth and Development Agenda, GSGDA-2. While some achievements were made under these plans, they were never fully implemented. Some of the bottlenecks were political changes, leading to the abandonment of plans by successive governments, lack of sustainable financing, and the challenges of changing the structure of an economy within a medium-term time frame.
Welcome back. As I indicated, we are going to have an interesting conversation, and today we are looking at whether or not development plans work. And if they do, we want to know the Ghana story. What is really happening to our country called Ghana? I have with me one important guest who is going to help us appreciate this topic. And before I even mention his name, I just want to give you a background of him. He's been a consultant, a UN urban consultant for the drafting of the new urban agenda of the UN. We are also talking about an urban development consultant, a fellow of the Ghana Institution of Planning, public servant, researcher, visiting professor in Europe, past CEO for Ghana Center for Urban Transportation, and currently he's the CEO and founder of New Tree Ghana Limited. If you look at or you listen to this, you may be wondering if he's a Ghanaian, because sometimes we do not even appreciate the human resource that we have in this country. But yes, he's a Ghanaian, and this is someone who has been an integral part of particularly our 40-year development plan, which only God knows where it is now. I'm making reference to our own Dr. Bernard Abeku Atta. Doc, welcome to Politics and Beyond.
Thank you very much.
How has your day been?
It's okay.
I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah.
Doc, we really appreciate your coming. And today we are going to have a conversation, just like I indicated. It is one of the major things that we need to look at. And it's important we look at it dispassionately and look at it exactly what it is. Because that consistency of us as a country embracing that which is supposed to be a blessing, but we're rather embracing it to be a curse. And I'm making reference to some things like flood taking place as a result of water, rains, where we are supposed to harvest it and use it for better things. Bumper harvest taking place and all that. And all I can conclude on is that it is just because as a country we are failing to appreciate the importance of planning. I don't know what your take on it is, but do development plans, do they work?
Thank you very much, and let me say a big thank you to you,
right,
and then to the audience who are listening to us. And I acknowledge that we have very intelligent, very good people who know a lot about planning. I do not take it that I am the doyen of planning.
Right.
There are people who know so much, but I would do well to answer your questions.
Right.
Plans work. Plans work. It's important for us to acknowledge the fact that plans start from, it's a process. It
Right.
starts from somewhere, and it doesn't end.
Exactly.
Planning is a cycle. So the end of a plan is monitoring and evaluation, which
Very
must
true.
feed back into the planning process.
Sure.
So perhaps there is a point where we don't do very well as a country, but our plans have worked. If you take the first, what I will call the first long-term plan that this country has ever experienced, even though it was not in Ghana, it was in the Gold Coast. That is the Frederick Gordon Gorgesbeck's plan.
Is it a 10 years?
That's a 10 years plan, yes. This plan took Ghana from a point, took the Gold Coast from a point to another level. This was a plan that gave birth to pipe-borne water
Okay.
in places in Ghana, in Accra, in Winneba, in Cape Coast, in Takoradi, in Kumasi. This was the plan. This was the plan that gave birth to extension of the railway lines from Takoradi, giving us the Golden Triangle,
Right.
which is Takoradi, Kumasi, Accra, or Tema. So that triangle. This was the plan that gave birth to Achimota, which was the Prince of Wales School,
Right.
but later on became Achimota School. This was the plan that gave birth to Kolebu.
Interesting.
This was the plan that gave birth to some of the very important technical school ideas. So plans do work. So from Gorgesburg, we came to the Kwame Nkrumah 7-year development plan, which was 3 years short of what Gorgesburg did.
Exactly.
And yes, Nkrumah's plan was not allowed to live to its end because it was up to 1970.
Sure.
Got truncated in 1966. Then we had military skirmishes, military interventions along the line, which really did not help us that very much.
Yeah.
We came back to civilian rule, and Liman's government did not really come up with its clear plan. But we had foreign interventions and foreign plans coming in to shape the way we should develop. We had the Economic Recovery Program, we had the Structural Adjustment Program, we had the Program of Action to Mitigate the Social Cost of Adjustment, PAMSCAD. Then we moved on till the year 1999, when the coffers of Ghana was said to have really gone down and leading us into what is called the HIPIC period. Then there was a plan to have the, even though within the 90s, before we got to 99, there was a Vision 2020 that had been initiated in 1996, 95-96, which was supposed to be a 25-year program leading us into the year 2020. We did not really get to the end of it, as it were, because then by 1999-2000, we had to go through the growth and poverty reduction strategies from 2003 onwards, which was the first stage. Then we had another one. So we had two growth and poverty reduction strategies. So that plan also worked out to a point, because it was a plan to take us off our indebtedness to the international community and others. And then we had 2008, President Mills coming in. Again, there was a plan that was put in place, because it is a requirement within the Constitution that something of that sort should be put in place. We will talk about the efficacy of those provisions and the efficacy of the way we do the planning. But did they work? Yes, they worked up to a point. Most of these plans, besides Gorgesburg and Kwame Nkrumah, and to some extent Jerry Rawlings, most of these plans look at the economic recovery, economic programs. It looks at social development, and some little infrastructure. Throughout the period, what we haven't really seen is a deliberate effort to shift the country from what it used to be, from Gorgesburg's period, to what the country must be, taking into consideration the current international dynamics of information technology, smart cities, smart thinking, intelligent communities. That is what we have not really seen. Deliberate policies, deliberate plans to shift the country. How long will we continue to depend on donors to finance our budgets? How long would we continue to depend on government doing infrastructure? Can it be public-private partnerships or public-private traditional authority partnerships, or what kind of arrangement? These are things that have not been done. Infrastructure, we have looked at it in terms of roads and rail. What about cemeteries?
Very important.
What about drainage systems?
That's right.
What about safe passages in terms of disaster occurrences?
Yeah.
If you take Accra, you take Kumasi, entry into Kumasi from the south is through Ejoso.
That's right.
There isn't any detour, there isn't any bypass, there isn't anything. So assuming you have insurgents, God forbid, or you had bad situations, and they block the road from Ejiso, and block the road also from Ebuakwa.
That's the end.
What really happens?
That's right.
If you take Accra, if there is a disaster today, like other countries do, or other cities do, there are disaster safe passages. You hear of train disasters in Brussels.
Right.
And within 2 or 3 hours, people have been evacuated. There are passages through that. We need to look at this country not from the politics perspectives and manifestos perspectives,
Right.
but allowing the institution of planning to do what it ought to do and giving religious commitment to those plans and providing financing to let them be
That's
done.
right.
So plans work.
Right. If plans really works, and from what you've said, I can see clearly Gordgesburg plan working very well. I mean, so far it looks like that has been the most effective implemented plan. Then comes Nkrumah and comes into the Fourth Republic, where we have spent a lot of taxpayers' money developing plans. And it looks like at the end of it, it is truncated. The very recent one has to do with the 40 years development plan, which you are part of in developing. Where is that document? I mean, what is the state of it?
That document exists. I think NDPC is using it as one of the plans that have been prepared and gathering dust on the shelves. But they are using it to also, review. Currently, I know they are doing a review of that plan. When the current government took over, interestingly, let me put it here. The current government, when it came into power in 2017, at that time, NDPC was chaired by Professor Kwesi Botwe.
That's right.
And the commission was not disbanded.
Okay.
They were allowed to work, complete the 40-year development plan,
Right.
and they submitted it to the president, Excellency Nana Addo Akufo-Addo.
Right.
And from the commentary I read, the document was acknowledged to be a very good material for development.
Exactly.
But a new commission was put in place, and then the new commission sort of looked at the plan and said, in order to look at 40 years, they should look at the first 10 years. So the plan was rebranded to Ghana at 100, which more or less is about the same period, because by 2057, Ghana will be 100 years.
Right.
So 2018 to 2057, it doesn't really make any major change.
That's right.
But then this is what they looked at, and they were looking at the first 10 years. That document exists. For me, it is one endeavor that I've put my life to, and many, many good professionals and technocrats have contributed to, at least giving a change in the way Ghana must be. So it exists.
But you see, if it is one thing for it to exist, but before then, let me announce the WhatsApp line, which is on the screen, 050-888-1800. Get interactive with us, and Doc will be able to, if there's a question that needs his response, he'll be able to respond to you as best as he can. The plan exists. Everyone knows. I have a copy. You have a copy. A lot of people do have copies. It is one thing to have it on paper, and another thing to implement it. What is happening to Ghana that we are unable to implement documents and plans that we use the taxpayers' money to develop for the benefit of the taxpayer?
Okay. This is a very heavy question.
I know.
It's a very, very heavy question. See, we elect government to bring development.
Right.
We don't elect governments to come and do politics.
Very true.
So some things have gone wrong in the previous regimes, and because of that, the people vote for a change. The change is expected to bring development in their lifestyle. So what really happens is plans may be there. The plans need to be implemented. The lifetime of the plans have not expired.
Yeah.
But we do not do what is called continuity.
That's right.
We do rather competition. I'm choosing my words carefully. The continuity is very important. There might be some variations to the way implementation will be done.
Yeah.
But at least let us see some continuity. Development is in continuity.
Right.
So let us see some continuity in the things that are initiated. So for me, we do not give political commitment to development plans. We don't give that kind of sense
Right.
to political plans. Then the second one is we do not do continuity
Sure.
of the plans. Then I think the third thing, which is very, very critical, is implementation and enforcement.
That's right.
So if we say we want to have 16 mortuaries or 16 cemeteries of the sizes of maybe 100,000 capacity in each of the regions, which some way somehow was considered in the 40-year development plan.
Right.
It was some way considered.
Even mortuary.
Yes, because see, we have heritage which are in the lives of people who have left
Yeah.
and impacted the country. Where did we lay them? And it may not be only politicians.
Exactly.
It may be traditional leaders.
Exactly.
It might be family leaders.
That's
it might
right.
be... So that is heritage. Today, if you go to Elmina, we have the Java Street.
Right.
Then we have the European Cemetery. That cemetery is there. People come from the Netherlands to come and see where their great-grandfathers who came as traders are laid.
Interesting.
They
That's
come to
interesting.
look at it, yes. So cemeteries need not be looked at as a dumping ground. Yes, of course, it's human who have expired, but we need to look at that. So we don't do continuity, we don't do effective political commitments, we don't do implementation and enforcement, and I think, that's my personal view,
Right.
I think that people also don't call the leaders to account.
Accounts. For me, I agree 100% with you, because I also think that, look, the kind of leaders we have, they are a reflection of the people. And so if we have leaders who think that they can do anything and go away freely, they will surely do that. And the reason why they would think so is because of the attitudes of the followers or the citizens. And so, yeah, to a large extent, the citizens have a role also to play. My interest in what you said, and I want us to do a follow-up on it, the competition and the continuity. You see, we have reduced governance in this country into just elections. And so it is all about me winning an election. The priority of the average leader is not about development. It's about how to win an election. And so if they think that they need to use the taxpayers' money to print T-shirts and that will bring them winning, they will do that and forgo cemeteries and other things. There's also a school of thought, and I want to make reference to one of our guests we had, Dr. Appiah, who is also watching us currently, where he described Ghana's economy as a cassava economy. And this was his explanation. Because of the short term So if I'm elected, I have 4 years, maximum 8 years, and I'm gone. And so it doesn't give me the opportunity to plan into details. I want to do something that within a short time, 6 months, 3 months, I can show results. And so it is more of a short-term economy we are running than a long-term economy because of the kind of political structure we have. If that is to be accepted, why then do we continue having a development plan going beyond 4 years, going beyond 8 years, knowing very well that the issue of continuity is a major issue in this country? Why 40 years and not 8 years or 4 years?
Okay, I think that brings us right into the domain of policy, programs, plans. The national policy is clear, but within its clarity is also a deficiency.
Right.
Per the 1992 Constitution, when a government comes into power, within the first 2 years, it must come out with its own program of development, which must be supported by the National Development Planning Commission.
Right.
If that government has 4 years, why do we wait for first 2 years before they come up with their program?
That's right.
And that is where the deficiency appears. And so they resort to their manifestos more than to the structured program that they have to pursue. If after the first 2 years or within the first 2 years you are coming up with your program and you want to look at implementation, then it suffices to say that you would only be able to implement in a year, because the last year of the 4 years is also for elections.
Elections, that's right.
So therein lies that deficiency. Therein lies that weakness. And that makes the institution of planning, NDPC, more or less weak. Because they have to do monitoring, effective monitoring, to feed into the system. And monitoring is both, what do you call it, effect and impact.
Impact, right.
So how do they really measure the impact at the end of the day to be able to advise succeeding government, whether the same government or a different government, that this is how we went about it? So there is that weakness in that area, you know, and it's in the 1992 Constitution. And that is where, when the Constitution review was being undertaken, I thought there's one area that has to be looked at. The second thing has to do with policy. The policy is, you said they should do planning. You said they should advise on planning. You cannot do medium-term plans in isolation. The medium-term plans must feed into a long-term plan.
That's true.
So where is the long-term plan?
That's right.
First of all, a government has only 4 years.
4 years.
First 2 years, they must come up with their program. By the time they are implementing,
election is
just around the corner. Then you say they should do, based on your program, they should do medium-term plans. Those medium-term plans are not feeding to any long-term plan. So by the time you do first 3-4 years of the districts and MMDAs, what is it feeding into?
That's right.
And I think this needs to be looked at seriously. Gordgesbeck had 10 years.
Uninterrupted.
He had it. You can see the railway lines. They are there. We are struggling to even expand them.
That's right.
But they are there. Take it or leave it. He's not an African. He's not a Ghanaian. But he came up with this, had the time. So plans become effectively implemented when there is time enough for the plans to be implemented.
In this Fourth Republic, talking about time, in this Fourth Republic, the parties and the leaders we've had, they've all had an average, not an average, I mean, they've had 8 years. Gordgesbeck had 10 years, so short of just 2 years. If 2 years or 10 years, he was able to have a 10-year development plan and implemented them, or the content successfully. Rawlings came 8 years. Kufuor came 8 years. Okay, so Mahama, Mills combined 8 years. Now we have the current one
doing
8 years.
Yeah.
If 10 years we can have all this, yes, we may talk of having enough time, but it's 8 years, not more than enough time. Indeed, Nkrumah had 7 years development plan, so he needed 7 years to implement. These leaders we've had in this Fourth Republic, they've all had 8 years, 8 years, 8 years, 8 years. Isn't it more than enough time?
Well, I think you can answer that question. I think you can. I think you can answer that question. The key thing here is Nkrumah had some good time.
Right.
You see the secondary schools that were constructed during his period.
Exactly.
It was more than what Gajisberg did in terms of the schools.
Yeah.
See the industries that he put in place. It was more than what Gajisberg could do. Gajisberg came up with the Takrady port. Nkrumah came up with the Tema port.
Right.
So, yes, Nkrumah did quite a lot because he had enough time. And that comes back to my point I raised.
Yeah.
Plans are effective when they have adequate time to be implemented. Nkrumah had good time. It would have been good for him to even see the end of the 7-year development plan. I mean, that would have been fantastic. Then we can do effective
comparison.
Jerry Rawlings had very good time.
Exactly.
But very good time military intervention, very good time civilian intervention. And quite a lot was also done. You know, I think our biggest challenge is the issue of the continuity and the political commitment. And when I talk of the political commitment, I'm not talking only about the current government's commitment, but I'm talking about the opposition's commitment
to it.
And I'm talking about technocratic commitments. You know, we need that in this country. There are countries that have state policies that no political party can change. And every plan that is developed must be based on that policy which has been put in place. What is our educational policy? We've joked with it. We've toyed with it. We've done so many things about it. We have had a generation that did not really know what kind of education they really got. You know. Then we have a generation which are also so.
So sad. It is so sad. On continuity, that is our biggest problem. If that is our biggest problem, and we all agree to that, is there no way that we'll be able to develop a plan, let's say the 40 years development plan, find a way of having a legal backing so that it binds...
Let me shock you before you...
Right.
The Gajisberg plan was approved by Parliament.
Interesting.
Nkrumah's plan was approved by Parliament. The 7-year development plan. The constitutional provision that in the 1992 constitution that any government that comes must make sure that within the first 2 years they come up with their whatever.
Yes.
That program must also be approved by Parliament. But that program is for 4 years.
Right. Right.
That program is for 4 years. I think that therein lies that issue. Because if there is a state policy, a clear policy of the long-term nature of the plan, any government that comes based on the policy that exists would provide targets, projections, ideas, interventions over the long term. And even if they don't continue, whoever comes may tweak those programs, and then we can achieve the continuity.
Why, if that is so, why did we fail to get the approval from Parliament on our 40 years development plan?
I think this was a plan that was well consulted. It was led by Nimoy Thompson.
Exactly.
Well consulted. I mean, traditional authorities, CSOs, NGOs, all the political parties. There is documentation that past presidents were even engaged. President Kufuor was engaged. We had all of them engaged. Let me make this statement here
Right.
carefully, with all respect. We have a country where we know everything, including nothing.
Explain further.
We know everything, even if we are not surgeons, we know.
We know.
Even if we are not engineers, we know. Even if we are not planners, we know. Even if we are not economists, we know. We know too much. Make nothing, the word nothing, a topic. And you get us...
Experts talking about...
We'll talk about the coefficients. We will talk. And we will bring documentations.
Right.
We'll bring all sorts of things. You know what that does?
No.
You get experts who know the fields folding their arms
Very true.
and not coming into the field to talk.
Very true.
Because what is he going to discuss when the minds have been made like that? That is not to say that Ghanaians must not talk. But let us talk in the way that it will bring constructive
I agree.
development in this
I agree.
country. So, let me leave it here.
No, but I agree perfectly. My viewers and myself, we are still interested in why we have a fantastic document known as the 40 Years Development Plan. And I was fortunate to associate closely with some of these individuals who either served as consultants or served as lead, you know, in developing these 40 years. And if you've had the chance, the opportunity to go through it, you really know that we have the brains in this country. No two ways about that. We have the brains in this country, and we have individuals who really know what needs to be done. Indeed, if you have a Ghanaian who is serving, you are still serving.
No, I said.
Okay, who served as a UN urban consultant for the drafting of the new urban agenda of the UN. And you know what that means? You know, we've always said that in the very near future, some years to come, the whole world is going to be urbanized. And so UN decided to have a plan. We are heading towards that. What are we doing as UN? That is foresight and planning ahead. Ghana, we've been having flood. Ghana, we've been having, and I remember when I was a kid, that was when I got to know that at a particular period in time, there's this dam from the Burkina Faso or so.
Bagre Dam.
Bagre Dam. At a point, it overflows and it needs to be, how do we call it, open for it to overflow. Consistently every year, we are either crying because the flood has affected some farmlands in the upper parts of the country, or it has even affected some homes.
Displaced people.
Recent one had to do with what happened in the Volta region. I mean, recently. And I'm told that it is funny how time flies. It happened somewhere last year. We are heading towards the same season. Is the same thing going to happen? What plans have been taken? What have we done? Before we come to the flood, I am still interested in what is the difficulty that is causing us not to have a clear development plan, having a parliamentary backing, so that as we progress, every political party's manifesto will be a manifesto coming from the plan. And then we all know as a country that this is where we are heading towards, 40 years. The sad thing is if you go on the streets right now and you ask the average person, what is Ghana's plan for the next 2 years, for the next 3 years, for the next 5 years? Plan may be too vague. What is our educational plan? What is our health plan? Technology, what is the plan? What are we trying to achieve as a country for the next 5-10 years? It is difficult to get. And it is all because we are just interested in winning the next election. And that is all. What prevents NDPC, knowing very well that one of the main challenges has to do with continuity? And then when I talk of NDPC, I'm not making reference to a particular period, but NDPC as an institution. What prevents NDPC from saying that, look, we've been toiled with, and one of the things we've realized has to do with continuity. This time, we are going to ensure that we have backing from Parliament so that this document becomes the Bible when it comes to development in this country.
I'll tell you what prevents NDPC.
Tell me.
And I'm sure that the directors there will not say it. What prevents NDPC is the politics.
So sad. I agree.
That prevents NDPC is supposed to be a technical brain of government, providing the technical. And you have, if you take the commission, it has fantastic brains in there.
Right.
But it's the politics now. So that's where the country has been reduced to. We've become more political in everything that we do.
Yeah.
That plans are no more of relevance. It's manifestos that are relevant. Why do we need a long-term plan? Because you need a long-term to prosecute a particular program so that you can see the effects taking place. How many engineers do we anticipate to have in the next 10 years?
Exactly.
How many lawyers?
That's right.
Is there a program to have engineers, lawyers, doctors, scientists,
That's right,
and nurses? How many nurses do we anticipate to have? Do we have a clear program?
That's the question.
So whilst other countries are, and indeed, let me say, special children, children with special needs, they are fantastic children. I'm told, I could be wrong, I'm told Lionel Messi, when he was a kid.
I also heard that.
But look at him. The guidance in the education, in the training, picked from Argentina, taken to Barcelona, given the kind of training he has to be given, given the medication he needs. Do we have a program for children with special needs?
And I'm sure Bill Gates was also saying.
Well, I don't. I wouldn't doubt that. Yes. So, yes, we do things for the politics. Why can't Parliament, based on the policy that is in the Constitution, that we shall have a National Development Planning Commission that shall advise government on policies, programs, and plans and all that, get NDPC to come up with clear long-term plans, and the medium-term plans can feed into it, and the manifestos will now be guided to follow that pattern. I do not know why. And that is what I'm saying. In Ghana, we know about everything. In fact, we know even about spirits more than the spirits know themselves. And when you make that a topic, people would discuss it and give you the pros and cons, the reasons why it is this, the reason why. Can you imagine a country when there is an accident? Instead of providing need for, we take cameras to record, to be able to say, I'm the first to report it.
That's right.
That is what we have got into.
That's right. That's right. We have about 10 minutes to wrap up this conversation. So now let's concentrate a little bit on the flood that we have in this country. We live in a country where instead of harvesting rains, we are now allowing the rains to kill us. And all of us, particularly those of us who were visiting our grandparents in the villages. I didn't grow up in the village, but the only experiences I had to do with visiting. And you could see the harvest, the pipes that was, well fixed, to the structures. And every rain, every drop of it is harvested. We are rather using it now, or we are allowing it to kill us. Rains, flood in Ghana. What is the cause of it?
Rains, natural phenomenon. Floods, natural and human. Management of it, human. What is happening is the natural phenomenon, we know it will happen anytime because the seasons have been established. The rainy season, the dry seasons. The natural and human innuendos have caused us untold hardship. What are some of the naturals? What are some of the
humans? Yeah.
We have built in places we are not supposed to build. We have a country where land administration and land management is a major issue. The 40-year development plan
takes care of that.
Took care of that. This was under the component that I was a lead.
Right.
Land management.
That's right.
Where should we have the green hat? Where it's completely green in the urban areas, in between the urban and the rural, in the forest regions, and there is supposed to be a clear plan. People have built, and unfortunately, some of the people who build are also knowledgeable.
Right.
It's because, as a country, one key problem that we have not handled very well is housing.
Okay. Okay.
If you go to England and you go to the Western economies,
right,
housing is handled by the local authorities, by government, inviting private sector to invest, and they go into mortgage systems. And because of that, proper arrangements, proper plannings are done. If you come to Ghana, it is the opposite. Traditional authorities own the land, and they sell the land based on some kind of survey they have done.
That's right.
And sometimes without recourse to district assemblies, who in any case do not own the land, they allow people to build. And in some instances also, complicity takes place between the technocrats who worked in assemblies and the individuals who build indiscriminately. This is one of the key problems. The second one also is urbanization.
Okay.
And disrespect. So housing, urban population growth, and then disregard for laid out plans. We have what is called the spatial plans that are developed by the Land Use and Spatial Planning Authority, which are supposed to guide the way development should take place, but we see it is not followed. Then the worst part of it is interventions that are supported by funding, loans. We don't see them fully being implemented. It's interesting. Odo has been drained several times.
Exactly. And we've used so much of our money to do that.
Not by this current government alone. Succeeding governments.
Exactly.
And Odo is still what it is. Not only Odo. There are so many places.
That's right.
You know, but the Volta region Volta River development was Kwame Nkrumah's intervention.
Okay, that's interesting.
The whole Volta River is under an authority.
That's true.
So that authority has that mandate to manage the river. And trust you me, that river is an international river. There is a lake, then you have various drains from the Sahelian and other parts of West Africa flowing into it. So the management of it has now even become international. But there is an authority that manages it. I think our biggest problem is leadership.
That is it. Leadership. And it even transcends into our district levels and the rest. Because the question I keep asking myself is, if the district assemblies are supposed to be in charge of development, how many planners do we even have over there? How many engineers, qualified engineers, do we have over there? Those who are appointed to be MCs and DCs, how many of them even appreciate the plan, how that district has been planned, and how it's supposed to be implemented? I visited a suburb, I think it is called Soutuomoso. And to my amazement, Doc, the big gutter, the end of the gutter has a building. The building was like right in the middle of the gutter. Right in it. And it is not in a hidden place. So that when you get to that environment, you don't need more than 1 minute to identify. So I'm very sure the MC there has seen it.
Works engineer.
Works engineer, they've
Planner.
seen it. Planner has seen it. Yes, MPs are not developmental agents, but they have also seen it. And yet this has been there for God knows how long, because people are inhabiting, people are staying in there. So I agree with you when you talk of leadership. I think it all has to do with leadership. I'll come back to you for your very final words, but let me just go through some of the messages that we have in here. This one says, "Hi, XYZ. Please ask Doc how many items from the 10-year development plan that has been developed physically, and where are those structures located?" I think Doc mentioned, this is from Francis. Doc mentioned most of them, the Achimota and all that. It was mentioned. "Good evening, Mr. Wilson. I remember the late Professor Adam, formerly Vice Chancellor of KNUST, proposed moving the capital town of Accra from Accra to some parts of Western region." Okay, so it's actually Dodoa. That was the proposal. May I know if that proposal is still in the pipeline? All right. Good evening, Emmanuel. Doc enumerated some achievements of the Guggesberg plan, but did not mention any achievement of Nkrumah's plan. Well, he did. I mean, later on he did. Was there no achievement from the Nkrumah's plan? This is from Baba in Tamale. So, Baba, it was done. Good evening, Mr. Wilson. These are the kind of leaders you should be inviting as your panels. This man must be seriously understudied. His submissions are free of politics. He's a true patriot. You are very right. And that is exactly what Politics and Beyond does. You know, we bring you true patriots for us to discuss issues that will transform our minds. Please ask Doc for me, which country can develop without the country developing her citizens? I am talking about citizens development. Okay, no name here. Good evening, Comrade Wilson. Thanks for your noble guest for sharing lessons on planning. The political class in Ghana is simply a money-making group of people, not leaders. Every year, the two political class in Ghana are involved in equalization. One party is voted out for their wrongs in government, for the other new one to come and correct. But because they take the people for fools and the people easily forget about their yesterday, they continue with equalization. The Ghanaian political class simply don't respect ordinary Ghanaians. The people are too timid, docile, weak, and difficult to know their left from their right. Common waste bin the leaders can provide for the people. God continues speaking to our greedy, selfish, and wicked political class leaders. This is John Achu Kakito from Teshin. When I started reading, I knew this is coming from John Kakito. Kakito, you are one of our committed viewers. Thank you so much. He always writes this. Good evening, Mr. Wilson. I wonder how our leaders think, especially under Akufo-Addo Bawumia government. Imagine spending trillions on National Cathedral when Ghanaians on dialysis can't afford their dialysis fee. I am Christian Ekwamwa from Odome Chala in the Oti region of Ghana. My regards to my father, Mr. Abbas. Well, that is what Doc rightly said. The problem we have is leadership. That is all. So because we don't even have the right leaders, we are not even able to appreciate what our priorities are. Good evening, Mr. Host, and to your panelists. Development plans are workable, effective, and efficient, but with utmost consensus building, putting the issues in the public domain for, okay, this also very lengthy, by God bless Aka from Inzima, Ayinase, Elembele district. Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Wilson. I must commend you for your panel today. These are the kind of leaders you should be inviting. This man is deep. Okay, I think, is it similar to what I read earlier? No name. Thank you. Doc, please, what is the role of the Institute of Planners Ghana in the planning of our cities and towns? Assemblies have planning units, yet problems everywhere. This is from Baba Tamale. Good evening, Mr. Wilson. This is a nice topic to discuss about for Ghana to develop, to well develop. We need to have a law in our constitution which will direct or force every government to continue any unfinished project. And this is from Benjamin Owusu, all the way from Nigeria. Oh, Benjamin, thank you for doing the watching from Nigeria. I see that Ghana will not develop taking into consideration the current state of our politics. We Ghanaians don't support good decisions, but we support evil. All right. What makes NDC more better than MPP is that, one, TOR have one unity built by Kwame Nkrumah. It is not so clear. Francis Nyamedi Tema, your message is not so clear. Mr. Wilson, I think aside Dr. Nkrumah, who won elections with a political party but became the president of Ghana, the so-called leaders after him are just presidents for their individual political parties, and to the larger extent, selfish interests. My question to Doc is, what is he doing at the moment to help correct the mess? I know our time is up. Let me just read the last two, and then the rest that are in, I'm sure we'll continue the debate of the program. Our leaders have just been cruel to the people. They all know the right things to do, but refuse to do them. They rather prefer to pursue their personal and party interests. Nobody should attempt extending the years of a term, because if we do, and we are unlucky to have a president like Nana again, I don't think we can endure it. Okay, so this is from Wilson, my namesake. All right. The last one, this is Akologo Edmond from Upper East Zebula. In fact, you people are doing a great job. God bless you people. Thank you so much. Because of time, this is where we'll end the messages. We appreciate each and everyone who has sent and those who are still sending messages. Doc, there are some few questions that came. You want to quickly address them if you may. Yeah.
If I can put this in a capsule, I think I'll try and put it in a capsule.
Right.
The first question has to do with Nkrumah's intervention and role in development. I think Kwame Nkrumah did fantastic.
Right.
He had enough time to implement most of the things he looked at from the time he won election, became the leader of government business. Right. Till he became the president of Ghana in 1960. And then through to the time he completed a long-term plan before it was implemented. So he did very well. Gajesbek is a leader that I think we should study carefully, not to condemn what he did because it was a colonial government, but also to improve.
Right.
See, right. In terms of education, Kwame Nkrumah followed what Gajesbek did. Gajesbek had a comprehensive elementary education program. Right. And he looked at secondary, but his intention was those who were to go through secondary must be prepared to enter university. Right. That's the difference. Okay. It's not just going through secondary just to get out.
So there should be a continuity.
There should be a continuity to the university. Then there was the technical bit as well. But one interesting thing he did, which is amazing, he looked at character training.
Very well.
Character training in our educational system. I don't know whether it is still there. I don't know if we follow that. I don't know that's what we are pursuing. What is the role of GIP? That was a question from
someone.
Ghana Institute of Planners. I think Ghana Institute of Planners exists as a professional body to see to the integrity of planning. Okay. And I think that's where I belong. They've done fantastic. They can do better, but if the leadership is right for the country. What makes NDC better than MPP? I don't want to go into that one.
No, that's all.
No,
that's
it's
fine.
not something I'll
That's
go
fine.
into.
Look, in less than a minute, on this platform, as we prepare for the general elections, we are also transforming the minds of Ghanaians, because we believe that elections, governance is a serious business. We don't toy with it. You elect, less than 2 minutes, you go and tamper it. But remember, you are bonding yourself for the next 4 years or 8 years, and even into the future of your next generation. What is your advice to electorates?
Two things. Right. You are giving job to somebody to do. You go and stand in the sun and the rain, and then the person comes, you give him the job, then you give him money as revenue, fuel, and all that. So choose carefully. The second thing is look at the policies and programs based on the conversations we are having. Who is going to bring transformation in infrastructure? Who is going to bring transformation in education? Who's going to bring transformation even in social life?
Right.
And based on that, choose. So I would advise people to choose wisely.
Choose wisely. That is all we can say. Doc, thank you so much for your
My
time.
pleasure.
Thank
My
you
pleasure.
so much,
My
so much.
pleasure.
And I believe we've been able to learn something, as it has always been, a transformative platform. That is what we seek to do. This is, again, your program, Politics and Beyond. And I'm your host, Emmanuel Wilson Jr. This coming Wednesday, we are going to have a repetition of this episode right here on this platform, XYZ, TV XYZ, exactly at 11 a.m. Those who missed, alert those who missed to join, because this is an information that you need, particularly as we prepare for the next election, 7th December. So we'll meet again next week, where we are going to have another interactive and transformative program. All I can tell you now,